We're back, and welcome back to Spotlight on Cheshire. Our second guest this evening is Corky Mazurek. Corky, welcome to Spotlight on Cheshire.
Thank you, Lou. Pleasure to be here.
Corky is running for the state senate in the 16th district. And Corky, why don't you tell us, first of all, what towns are encompassed within the 16th district?
Sure, I'd love to, Lou. Lou, the 16th district has been redistricted this year just a little bit, and it now includes all of Southington, all of Wolcott, all of Prospect, a portion of Cheshire, and a portion of Waterbury.
Okay, 5 towns, I guess.
5 towns.
5 towns. And who is your opponent in this election?
My opponent is Joe Markley.
Okay. Corky, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, just your where you live and what you do and that type of information?
Sure, I'd love to, Lou. Lou, I was born in Waterbury, east end of Waterbury, 59 years ago. Educated in Waterbury Chase School, Crosby High School, and from there I went on to Waterbury State Technical College and earned an associate's degree in mechanical engineering. And at that point, Pratt & Whitney came along and offered me $10,000 a year. Will you come work for us? And that was a ton of money back then for me, so I went to work for Pratt & Whitney in 1973.
Very good. I understand that you're still at Pratt & Whitney.
I'm still at Pratt & Whitney 39 years later. My wife suggests that I work another 11. That'll give me an even 50. But Pratt & Whitney has been very, very good to me. They allow me to serve, number one, and we'll talk about that later. But also at Pratt & Whitney, they're very pro-education. And while at Pratt & Whitney, I went on and earned a bachelor's degree in manufacturing and a master's degree in industrial management from Central Connecticut State University.
Well, that's been good. Pratt & Whitney has been good for you. Are you married, single?
I'm married to Cindy. We have 2 children, Paul, and Paul lives in Wolcott, owns his own home. Kara lives in Southington, owns her own home. So we have one of each.
And I understand that your daughter is a teacher and teaches in the same school as your wife.
Yes, she does, Lou. That's true. They both teach at Wallace Middle School in Waterbury. Both teach 7th grade, but they're in different houses, different principals, but both in the same building. So it's kind of nice for both of them because they see each other on occasion during the day.
Now, Corky, while you're not in the legislature right now, you have served in the past, haven't you?
I did. I was a state representative in the 80th district from 2003 until 2010, and that was representing all of Wolcott and a portion of Southington in the legislature.
Why don't you tell us a bit about what you did in the legislature?
It was just fascinating. I loved being in the legislature. Obviously, if I'm running again, I love being in the legislature. But we championed some great bills in the legislature to lower the price of electricity. I brought that bill out. I debated that bill for 6 hours on the House floor, and it did lower the price of electricity in Connecticut. Also, we did a bill for money follows the person, for example, and that's to me is a very important bill and something I plan on working on again. But that will allow someone who's elderly or handicapped to be able to live at home in a different environment than an institutional setting. And the money that would be spent on their care in an institution, in fact, will transfer and allow them to stay at home with their loved ones.
I think that's Medicaid is primarily spent for institutional care, but under Money Follows the Person, then people can take advantage of the Medicaid program and stay out of an institution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in addition to that, a bill that I railed for and wasn't able to get passed was on the Citizens Election Fund. The Citizens Election Fund basically took private money out of the election, the campaign elections, and it introduced taxpayer funds into the elections. And but what it requires is it requires all taxpayers to fund all of those campaigns, whether they agree with a particular candidate's beliefs or not. And I just feel that there's a better way to use taxpayer money than to pay for campaigns. And I offer that legislation up in a bipartisan manner. I got it on the floor. We got our hearing. Unfortunately, we didn't get it passed. But one bill that we did get passed had to do with teenage drivers. And we had a terrible tragedy in Wolcott where we lost 3 young people in a terrible accident. And out of that, I held a series of public hearings, and we changed the requirements in Connecticut for a 16 and 17-year-old to obtain their driver's license. They needed more time behind the wheel practice. They couldn't have friends in the car for a certain period of time. In fact, their parents had to go for a couple of hours of education in the driving laws of Connecticut so that the parent would work together with the child and understand the laws. That law that we passed in a bipartisan fashion, in fact, has been proven to save young lives in Connecticut. I couldn't be happier about that, more proud of legislation that we passed that in fact saved lives.
Passing legislation is an art, I guess, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. It certainly is an interesting proposition. They say you don't want to see how laws are actually made. But what's important in my mind is to work on legislation in a bipartisan manner. The best laws, in my opinion, are laws that are promoted by both sides of the aisle and in fact passed in that manner. And that's the way I've worked in the past, and that's the way I intend to work in the future.
And you found that enables you to achieve your legislative goals, I guess, better than a less bipartisan manner.
Oh, absolutely. While I was a state representative, I helped deliver thousands and thousands of dollars to Southington, and to Wolcott for various projects in town, the YMCA Early Childhood Center down in Southington, the Southington Drive-In, the reclamation of that land, and they've actually turned it into a park, rails and trails down there. In Wolcott, we had 2 different water projects. We have problems in Wolcott with the amount of groundwater, and we were able to obtain 2 very large grants to help the residents pay to have water installed, city water installed in 2 different sections of Wolcott. All of those grants were received from Republican governors. And if you can't work across the aisle and work with the other party, you can't get in line for any type of grant or extra funding from the state of Connecticut. It doesn't happen.
I think we're seeing that happening on a national level, aren't we? Sometimes with the partisanship.
Exactly, we're seeing a lot of partisanship on the national level, and that really prevents good legislation from going forward. You have to have, in my opinion, it doesn't do your constituents any good if you don't have a seat at the table, and you have to have a voice at that table. And that table gets closed if all you do is rail at the other side and seek to get headlines at the expense of the other party. You don't get a seat at the table.
Corky, you also had some role in legislation regarding the taxation of a business personal property.
Oh, absolutely. That was something that manufacturers, and obviously Pratt & Whitney, 39 years. I've already said that I work with manufacturers. And one of the things that they complained about was the fact that they had difficulty competing with the surrounding states that did not have a personal property tax on their manufacturing equipment, where Connecticut did. So we passed legislation that in fact would phase out the manufacturing personal property tax on manufacturing equipment over a several-year period. And that was to put our manufacturers in Connecticut on equal footing with those in other states.
Corky, I guess you're out of the legislature now. You probably have a little more free time, and you have a busy job. Why are you running for office again?
Oh, Lou, I love the constituent service. Number one, I love the constituent service. I enjoy very much knocking on someone's door, speaking with them about what concerns them in their everyday life, and being able to help them. I get a great deal of personal satisfaction. So when people come to me and say, we have a problem with the Department of Motor Vehicles, we have a problem with the veterans, we have a problem with social services, or the Department of Environmental Protection, I can go out and help them solve their problems. And I get a huge amount of satisfaction out of that.
And you do that yourself? Do you have a staff? How do you go about doing that?
The staff is difficult. The state representative, 4 state representatives share one person during the day. So you get 2 hours out of a staff person to help you along. And you know, I got a kick a number of years ago. Someone in Southington complained that I hadn't returned a phone call to them. And I was kind of taken back, and they said, well, we contacted your staff and you never called us back. And I said, staff? I don't have a staff. I have one person, and that's 2 hours a day. I don't know who you spoke with. So it's difficult sometimes, and what I do, I'm a different type of legislator. I encourage people to call me at home. And my phone is on the hook, my door is open, and I love hearing from people. The easiest vote that I had in the legislature in 8 years was when my phone rang off the hook from 6 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. And Cindy would say to me, there's another call on that issue, another call on that issue. But I knew exactly what my constituents wanted me to do when I got to Hartford. That was the easiest vote I had in 8 years.
Because you knew what people wanted you to do.
I knew what my constituents wanted, and I went and voted for them. Didn't matter what I wanted. I went and voted for them.
Any other reasons why you're running again?
Well, I don't think that we're particularly well represented, and you know, we have to touch base on that. When I ran 10 years ago, I didn't think we were well represented, and now I've taken 2 years off, and I see the current state senator has filed a number of lawsuits against the state of Connecticut. He filed a lawsuit over the budget. He filed a lawsuit over the unionization of home health care workers, and he filed a lawsuit over the busway. And I just don't believe that that's the way a state senator should behave. I think what you do is you go to Hartford, you stand up on the floor, you argue your point, you make coalitions with both sides of the aisle, and you sell your program that way. But if you don't get your way, you don't turn around and file a lawsuit against the state of Connecticut. That costs the taxpayers thousands and thousands of dollars to defend against those lawsuits, number one. And number two, you earn a reputation that doesn't allow you to bring any money back to the district. The governor's not going to give you grant money if you sue him at every turn in the road.
Corky, what will you focus on if you're back in the legislature?
Lou, I would like to, you know, it depends upon what committees that I would get assigned to. In the past, I've served on general law, energy and technology. I've served on banking. I've served on transportation. I served on commerce. Absolutely fascinating. And the number one problem that we're having in Connecticut and in the United States is jobs. Everyone's talking about it, and it's the truth. People don't have any confidence that they're going to have a job if something were to happen next year. They don't have any confidence if they're unemployed that they can get a job. So the whole economy is revolving around jobs. So I'd like to go back on the Commerce Committee. When I served on Commerce, a good friend of mine, Jeff Berger, asked me to serve on that committee because of the experience that I had with manufacturers. And I'd like to get back on the Commerce Committee and again work with manufacturers and other businesses in the state of Connecticut. How can we help you to hire people?
Well, Corky, on that note and on that very important topic, I think we're going to have to end. You seem to have a lot of enthusiasm toward getting back in the legislature, and you have experience, and good luck.
Lou, thank you very much.